Mr. Dhoraisingam was born on 23rd February 1925 in Sentul, which is a part of Kuala Lumpur. He is 86 years old today. Let us give him a warm round. I think Mr. Dhoraisingam and Ambassador Joe Concesio have both demonstrated that there is no expiry date to human creativity and scholarship. Yeah? And Ambassador Pani and I are slightly younger than the two of them, so I wanted to tell Samuel that he's given both of us hope and inspiration. He came to Singapore to study for his higher school certificate, which is the equivalent of what we now call A-level. On completing his studies, he never returned to Malaysia. He studied history at the University of Malaya in his Singapore campus, graduating in 1961 with a degree of Bachelor of Arts, and in the following year, degree of Bachelor of Arts with honours. He has a very distinguished career in the field of education, and I just want to share with those of you who don't know about his career some of the highlights in his career. He has served as principal of our secondary schools, as the senior inspector of schools, as the assistant director of secondary schools at the Ministry of Education. He was head of the Department of Education in the Ministry of Defence. He was a member of the board of directors of the former History Museum, which today is known as the National Museum of Singapore. He was president of the Singapore History Association, and in 1975, for his distinguished service to the nation, the President of Singapore conferred on him the award of Public Administration Medal. Ambassador Pani has already said he's the author of 5 books, and the one he likes most is the book on the Peranakan Indians, who are also known by the name Chiti Malacca. Now I want to assure Ambassador Pani and Mr. Dhoraisingam that the Peranakan Museum of Singapore on Amelia Street is aware that not all Peranakans are Chinese, that there are also Indian Peranakans. And if you visit the museum, you will see in the panoply of photographs that we have representations of both Indian Peranakans as well as Chinese Peranakans. The reason why we do not have on display more of the material culture of this community is that it's very hard to get access to this. And now that we have the president of the Indian Peranakan Association here, can I make a shameless pitch at you? If you have in your community members with family heirlooms, material possession that tells the story of the Indian Peranakans, and you're willing to either donate them to the Peranakan Museum or to sell them to us, we would be interested. Because I want the Peranakan Museum to acquire the material culture, not just of the Chinese Peranakan, but also of the Indian Peranakans. And now I want to say something about the book. Mr. Dhoraisingam has already told us how a happy accident motivated him to write the book, and that the first version of the book was published in 1991. It sold so well that it was reprinted in 1996. It was reprinted in 2006. But this latest version, the version that we are launching this evening, is a revised and expanded version. I want to say something about writing books in Singapore. Writing books in Singapore is a labor of love. Unless you are very lucky, or you are very famous, or if you write your book on sex or ghost stories, it's very hard. It's very hard to make any significant income from writing books. So those of us who write books in Singapore do it as a labor of love. Since it's a labor of love, and authors in general don't earn very much from writing their books, we need to give them what I call a psychic income. Yeah, we should praise our authors, and we should raise their social status in our society. My dream, when I was chairman of the National Arts Council, is that one day in Singapore, our writers, our composers, our artists, our filmmakers, and I see Mr. Baksa here, who's both a great choreographer and dancer, and other artists would enjoy the same high status as their counterparts do in the culture living societies of the West. That's my dream. The dream is not yet achieved, but I think we are on the way. Mr. Dhoraisingam has written a very comprehensive book. In this book, he tries to tell us the story of Singapore through 160 places of historical interest. And I want to assure you that I've gone through your whole books. I've gone through all 160 places that you've written about, photograph on. What I want to do this evening is not to talk about all 160 of them. That would be impossible and would take all evening. What I want to do is to use the book as a resource and to tell you Earth's history, my version of the history of Singapore through 10 of the places contained in the book. And I spent some time yesterday reflecting on how to choose 10 out of 160. So this is my attempt, and I hope you will enjoy my choice of 10 places of historical interest in Singapore, which represent different milestones in our history. Let me begin with Fort Canning, also known as Bukit Larangan, which is on page 1 of the book. Until this hill was renamed as Fort Canning, the original name of the hill is Bukit Larangan, which in Bahasa means the Forbidden Hill. In pre-British days, the hill was forbidden to common folks like us. Only the royal family could live on that hill. And the members of the royal family who passed away are buried on the hill. And there are, I think, two kramats. There are 2 kramats on the hill. Raffles, who was a student of history, knew this. So when he came to Singapore, he built a residence for himself on the hill. If his successors were as history-minded as he, they would not have renamed the hill, and the Istana would be on top of the hill and not where it is now. There's another reason why I chose Fort Canning as the #1 place of historical interest. In recent years, we have been conducting archaeological digs on the hill. And through these archaeological digs, we have discovered unbelievable objects. Objects of gold, objects of silver, objects of porcelain. If you go to the National Museum, you will find these on display. And the most beautiful object is an object in gold which goes back to the 14th century. I think these recent discoveries on Bukit Larangan irrefutably support the thesis that the island of Singapore had been inhabited since the 14th century. So that is why I begin with Fort Canning, with Bukit Larangan. Let me now go to my second place of historical interest. And this one will be controversial because you will say, why do you pick the Eurasian Community House, page 321, as your second choice? After all, it's a relatively new building. It's not a historical building. It is true. The Eurasian Community House on Ceylon Road is not a historical building, but it embodies a very old story.